I actually have two things. So, two of the quotes that my mom said to me when I was growing up. And again, that goes back to that. I'm pretty sure she thought it was something simple, but she didn't really know how it would resonate. So, one of the things that she would say to me is that whoever it is, there's something that you want out there. They have theirs and you have yours to get. So, you can sit back and talk about whatever it is they're doing or not doing that's keeping you from getting to whatever it is or whatever frustration you have with them, or you can see what it is they're doing and get what you need to get from them and keep moving past that, right? So like that's even the teachers, you're having problems with your teachers, they're giving you a hard time. You're having a hard time with your leadership, they're giving you a hard time. Okay, but they are already in the position where you may want to go. So are you going to sit back and keep complaining about what it is they're doing or not doing, or are you going to get the qualities that you need to get from them for you to get to that level and beyond?
VeteranCommunity podcast, welcome. Today we bring you Crystal Tramack. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Crystal.
Thank you, Yogi, for having me. Thank you, Chris. I'm really appreciative of being here.
That's awesome. And before we go too far into the episode, what is the best way for MIl2Vet listeners to get a hold of you?
They can find me across all social media platforms at Crystal She Speaks. So that's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Clapper. And I know a lot of people haven't heard of that one. That's also on X, which we used to be Twitter. So there are a lot of ways to get a hold of me, all at Crystal She Speaks.
Man, I'm just trying to figure out what Clapper is like.
It's like a hybrid between Clubhouse. Oh yeah, I'm also on Clubhouse. It's a hybrid between Clubhouse and Instagram. So you can post videos and things there. They say it's business related. I don't know. You know, some things are business and some things are not. But it's like an adult TikTok, is what I found it to be.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. So what is She Speaks? What is that about?
So, of course, I'm using my voice to share with the community what I've gone through and what I've experienced, and also how to get to whatever your next level is. And so, it's a play on words. So, it's for me as a speaker, Crystal, and I'm also a woman. So, Crystal, she speaks. The other thing is, my middle name is actually Shanice. And so, Crystal is a common name. So, I didn't want to just do Crystal Speaks. I did Crystal, she speaks. So, it's also my middle name and the fact that I'm talking.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thank
Wonderful way
you.
to use a play on words.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. You know, I my last name is Elder, so I used to get all those jokes as a kid. Oh, you better respect your elders, ha ha ha. And now my handle is Respect Thy Elder.
Oh, I like it. I do like that too. I got the play on words. There is a city here that I was actually named after. My mother really loved the city, and it was called Crystal City. And so I that was a joke that some people would have. Oh, Crystal City, and I'm like, one of the people that would joke on me. He also had a name of a city that was nearby. I'm like, so you don't get to use a joke that also works on your name.
Yeah, the art of learning how to shit talk.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So, what books do you recommend transitioning service members, or what books or media, podcasts, whatever, would you suggest or wish you had while you were going through your transition?
So that's a really good question. What I will say is I don't have a specific, well, I can offer books because I actually wrote a couple. And so I will preface that with it all depends on what you want to do. So one of the things is when I transitioned, it was not at a time that I prepared to transition. We've all heard the saying, once you hit the 10-year mark, you should decide to stay or go. And so at that point, I decided to stay. And the Army allowed me to get to 14 years, get looked at, get selected to go to school fully funded for a second master's degree on a full-time basis. And then they had a board because Congress said, hey, I need you guys to reduce your numbers and get back to your pre-deployment numbers. And I got caught in the downsizing. And I went before the separation board before I went before my first look at promotion to my next grade, which would have been the grade of major. And so I was selected for school, I was selected for separation, and then I was not selected for promotion, all with the same information within a 6-month time frame. So I did not have that luxury of taking the time of like, hey, I have time for transition. Yes, I have a year, but it really turned my world around because I had 4.5 years left for a full 20-year retirement. So I didn't have that luxury of the books, like paying attention to that. I just knew I needed to get out there and get moving so I can do what I need to do with my family. And so the same thing with podcasts. But where I am now, I realize that depending on what you want to do, it's best for you to get connected and start to read things that are speaking to what it is you want to do. So if you're interested in going into business, you're interested in getting into podcasting, start looking at that information that's out there in podcasts. Let's find your favorite person that you like and you resonate with and the things that you can also emulate. The same thing with business. Start listening to audiobooks and things like that. If there are things you want to do with business, if it's something you want to do in any particular field, educate yourself on the thing. Use the educational resources that are out there for you to educate yourself with that. So I say I don't have a specific book that I would have said then, but I wrote 2 books. And so one of them is, I know that we have that habit of no longer working out when we separate when we separate from service. And so people struggle with that. They're used to someone telling them to do something all the time. And so another play on that, my name is She Needs to Move Something to Live, is this book, because I that's how I got into the military. That's how I actually got into college and decided to continue going after my education, because I really love track and field. So my passion for track and field actually is what caused my drive in my career choices and just the rest of my life. So this book gives you 3 tips to health and fitness, things you can do that are pretty simple for you to incorporate anywhere and getting into shape. And so keeping you where you need to go and where you need to be, or getting you back in that position. And then my other book that's coming out is my 6-figure federal income. My 6-figure federal career, the blueprint to your landing your dream job. So if you're interested in getting to the federal government, that's another thing that you can read when it comes out. It's out for pre-order, and get information that helps you get where you want to go and minimize the delays that other people are having with the hurdles to getting into the system, the roadblocks they feel like they're bumping up against, and also not listening to the naysayers that say, "Oh, you were only this rank, so this is what you qualify for." That couldn't be further from the truth. It's all about your skill set and how you present yourself. And a lot of times we don't give ourselves credit for a lot of things that we've done. And so knowing how to package that and present ourselves makes a big difference. And so that is what I would say about your audio books and podcasts, and also the books to read during your transition or preparing for transition.
So can we get a nugget of wisdom from your book, The Six-Figure Federal Career?
Absolutely.
Um, that yeah, that'd be fantastic. So that's fantastic, because you're right. In the time that I've been learning about the GS positions and the transition, there are a lot of naysayers that say, "Hey, regardless of depending on your rank, this is what you are will ever qualify for," right? And essentially, many people will project that GS 12 will be the highest that you'll ever reach. Unless you were a commander or above, GS 13 is completely untouchable, right? There will have to be essentially an act of Congress before that would have to get passed, joking, in order to be able to reach that level, or that you have to be in the GS system for the last 20 years to be able to take that next step. And I find it fascinating that you talk on that point, because it really, to someone that is uh, has seen it from the other side, it makes absolutely no sense, because someone that's qualified is qualified, right? Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. And I can also let you know that as a captain, I was enlisted. I started out as a medic and then commissioned. As a captain, I have made the grade of GS 14 in the system. And I've done that within a 3-year time frame. So it is also about strategy and knowing how to move around as well. And yes, I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, but I also have held 12, 13, and 14 without supervisory responsibility. So there are things that are out there that people will tell you don't exist, but they do exist. There are 15 positions that don't supervise. There are GS 12, 13, and 14 positions that are administrative assistants. And many people won't even realize that. So there's a lot out there. You really just need to look through the system yourself and not take that one title that you see and think that it applies for everything.
What what do you think that you did while you're in your transition? Because earlier you talked about something that pinged my interest. You're like, I got my college debt free, and that's a really big deal. The military may have paid for some of it. Is that correct? Did the military pay for it, or did you work while you were going to college?
So my first degree was full track and field scholarship. My second degree, my master's degree, I used tuition assistance while I was on active duty. So I worked and used my tuition assistance to get my master's degree. And then I was selected to get another master's degree that would have been fully funded. Like I would have been in the civilian status and getting full pay and benefits. So yeah, I did get assistance from the
Yeah.
military and I'm actually getting assistance from them now for my doctorate program.
So, do you think that being debt free really spring loaded your step out of the Navy?
Well, yeah, I mean, it being debt free that is a huge deal. It was a challenge for me because I transitioned when I was separated under that downsizing. I came from Korea. I was in an assignment with Korea, came to Virginia, and I had to do some renovations to a home that I purchased. And I knew that I had another 1 to 2 promotions in me before reaching my full 20-year retirement. So I made plans around, oh, you're going to get another promotion. And so you can always put that money back. Well, things changed. And so I had to pivot. When I initially separated, although I did not have any debt, they need to do an audit of your records before they pay you your first check. So I was fortunate enough to retire early. And they retired me right going into the winter season. So you cannot use your GI Bill because guess what? School is on break. So that's not money that you have coming in. Most people aren't hiring. Hiring slows down during that time frame. And so when I initially separated, I was living off of credit cards. And I was like, this is not sustainable. And I'm frustrated because I don't like to have that kind of negative debt. Like it's a difference in having good debt and you're buying assets and things like that. That's something totally different. But when you're buying debt that doesn't help you in any kind of way, like no, that's not good for me. And so of course that credit card debt is not one of those things that's helpful to you. So I initially had to I did a little substitute teaching when school was in to do that. I worked a contract job and I kept applying and finally got into the federal government. But yeah, I do really believe that the opportunity to minimize as much debt as possible, especially when it's not acquired for positive reasons for asset building, it is the best way to springboard you into anything that you want to do. And so the military definitely was good for me with that. And so, yeah.
What year were you forced out? What program was it that was forcing everybody out at that time?
So the army actually was under the terror. So there was a drawdown, and my the unfortunate part is the rest of the army was doing this drawdown. The army medicine opted in. So they didn't even have to do it. And my field wasn't even short. I mean, my field wasn't even overstaffed at the time. They opted in and then realized, as you've heard before with other programs, they let too many people out and then start offering for people to come back. Um, but you just really don't understand how you upset people's world like that. So essentially, I was penalized for fast tracking. When I first came in, I was a medic. I made E5 and E6 in my first 4.5 years. So most people, of course, make it 8 years, 7, 8 years. So when I made E6, I was recruiting, I was a medical recruiter. Someone mentioned that I was doing great in non prior service recruiting and recommended medical recruiting. I don't know who this person is to this day. I went over to medical recruiting and realized that I was eligible to be a commission officer, a direct commission. So I recruited myself, I prepared my packet, and then I gave the packet to one of my peers and said, hey, this is your mission. Sign your name to it. You get credit. I get to commission and our station gets credit. So that is how I commissioned. I commissioned with 4.5 years. So just enough time to get that officer enlisted pay, which is that nice bump in pay. And also to have the opportunity to continue to grow. So to get to the point of just hitting 14 years, so 10 years as an officer, and be forced out, not having any derogatory history, being great with physical fitness, having always high scores, always being deployable. That was a hard blow. So yeah, yeah, it's so that was the a program they opted into, but they said that if you have 15 years, you could retire early. So it worked out for me that my year, when they let me know, I was already at 14 years and 8 months. So when I retired, I had 15 years and 8 months of service. And so I retired under the temporary early retirement, where they give you a reduction for every month that you were short of 20 years, but you get your pay and benefits. So I still make more than I would have made if I would have stayed enlisted and made Sergeant Major E9, but it's still not what I would have made had I been able to stay in the additional 4 years that I had planned for. So I'm thankful for it. However, they did not give me a retirement check for the first several months. I had to just wing it. And then, of course, I didn't have my disability until for the first several months either.
Yeah, I remember the Navy was doing some drawdowns, and now they're just really hurting for those people that they let go. And that's why it's like super important that everybody that's listening like should have a plan to stay in or get out, because you never know uh, when they're just going to start erroneously cutting people out. It happens, and it happened in the Navy. It happened in the Army. Even though right now you might be joining, and oh yeah, they desperately need people. In 5 years, they're gonna be like, yeah, we recruited too many. Cut. It can happen. So I'm really glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you actually made it clear to others too that are looking to join now to always be prepared. Because the other side of it is, I remember when I first came in and I was like, I'm going. Like, I'm not saying I'm ready to go. And what was the question? What are you going to do if you get out? Everyone asked that question. Well, if you get out, what are you going to do? Well, we're 1 to 2% of the U.S. population that is actually served. So what do you mean? What am I going to do if I get out? I'm going to get out there and make it. Of course, we are hard charging because we're doing something that the rest of the population isn't doing. So we've already set ourselves apart. But this is not the end all be all. I came in to take this to add to. It wasn't I had to do this. There was no other option. So, it is definitely important to put it in perspective and understand that yes, it's an opportunity, but just like they're getting something from you, you get what you get from them, and make sure you're prepared to go either way because anything can happen.
I'm glad that you touch on that, right? And I really love your transition experience, right? Because not only did you start as enlisted and then you continue, you made rank very fast, right? As you mentioned, the fast track, but then you also find a way to get yourself commissioned, right? What advice would you give if you could go back to the beginning of it, right? Um, Before you enlisted, what advice would you give yourself if you could go back in time and say, hey, this is you, this is what you're about to do. how can you propose yourself even more and retain yourself for that amount of time to be successful in the military?
So that's a very good question. And for a moment, I thought, wow, what would I answer? One, I would say I was a little bit of I was Private Benjamin. So I don't know if y'all get that reference, but when I showed up to basic training, I had no idea. Okay, so it was Goldie Hines, and she was clueless. She was so sweet and cute, like she had no idea, and she thought, I don't know, she thought she was going to like a glam camp or whatever. When I showed up to basic training, I had a rolling bag. I thought I was smart. I was like, I did. I walked my rolling bag, and they were yelling and screaming, and I couldn't understand what they were yelling and screaming at. And I'm like, what? I have a bag. I'm smart. It has wheels on it. So I'm going to roll it. And they're like, pick it up. You brought it. You carry it. I'm like, this makes no sense to me. So I don't get easily flustered. I've never been that person that's overly excitable. I've mentioned to my aunt when I was growing up, hey, your kitchen's on fire. And I was so calm about it, and I was like, I called upstairs and your kitchen's on fire. The flames are going up. And so I'm that calm one that, so I don't react that way. So when they're yelling and screaming, I'm just like, oh, okay, and going through the motion and doing what I need to do. So with the advice that I would give myself, because I learned recently that the things that I've done have been recognized as being a trailblazer. And that I received an award for that. I was actually speaking with my therapist about it, and he was like, it's trailblazer syndrome. And I was like, there's a thing. So being the first to do a lot of things in your circle, like in your family. I'm a first generation college student. There's a lot of things you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So you keep growing and expanding. And so you do it the best you can. You see what's around you and you educate yourself the best you can. So that is the same thing that I took into the military with me. And I was doing very well. When I was in recruiting, I learned a skill that's invaluable to me, the skill of research. And so I'm able to go in and research a lot of things. And when I pull the thread back and find all kind of stuff, people are like, how do you know this stuff? So one of the things that I would tell myself if I knew what I know now, find a mentor. Find a mentor, because that is someone that has already navigated it, and they can help you avoid the pitfalls and also position yourself for things that you don't know that you may be saying or doing that is not putting you in the best position. Or even if you are, again, I would have had that plan, as Chris said. I had it in the beginning. I want to get out. And people were like, what are you going to do? And then when I was like, I can do a lot of things. But when I started that I was doing well, and I was like, all right, I've already made the commitment to stay in now. That plan went away of, I'm going to leave at this point. At that point, I'm going to leave at the end of this 20 years at a minimum. And so that plan that I initially had went out the window. So a few things. One, stay close, put down your goals, and always make sure that you have somewhere that you can reflect back to them. Yes, they will change and shift, but also know that some things you just need to remember along the way. So that would have been a good thing for me not to forget along the way of having that other option of staying or going. But the biggest part is getting a mentor, someone to give you, because I didn't get that until really late in my career. Someone was like, hey, let's sit down. What's your 3 to 5 year plan? Okay, but by that point, what I didn't know was that was 2 years away from me being selected to separate. And that was even with the record that I had. And the funny, not so funny thing is there are people that had UCMJ history that had it before in my same career field, that were senior to me, that commissioned in my same field afterwards, and they were able to stay in, get promoted and retire. Yes, and even stay in the organizations to where they created offenses. So equity and fairness, we already know what that is as an adult. So just be prepared that everything doesn't always make sense. So getting a mentor will help you so that you can look ahead, and that's inside the service and also beyond.
Now, as you transition through all of the steps that you did, right? Um, Going from being, as you mentioned, the trailblazer to go to college, and then trailblazer to then choosing to join the military as enlisted, and then choosing to commission, and then unfortunately having transition in a very turmoil event after you had already planned to commit to the military. What advice would you give yourself, and how early to be able to have a good transition and reintegration? to be able to be where you're at now a lot faster than before?
So that's a good thing. One of the things I will say is life will always life. So things will happen that will like come out of nowhere. So not only did the transition happen, unfortunately, I'm an only child as I mentioned, but my cousins and I recognize each other as brothers and sisters. And so their kids are my kids and my son is their son. Their kids. So that I have nieces and nephews, although I don't have nieces and nephews. And so unfortunately, I lost one of my nephews during that time in a tragic way. He actually died by suicide, and so I'm going through all of this during this time, this transition. So I can't really see. I'm thinking that I'm doing what I need to do, but when I went back and looked at some paperwork that I filled out, they're like, "Hey, I know you have something going on. When you get a chance, please go back and fill the paperwork out." I thought I filled it out just fine, but when I went back and looked at it, it was a leave form. So I don't know what I wrote on this leave form. I thought that I was functioning. So sometimes we have to give ourselves that grace to understand that life happens to us, and even though we may think that we're moving along and we're not feeling the things that we're feeling, it's more of like an out of body type of thing. And so, one, just stop and take a deep breath. That's the first thing that I will tell you to do when it's time for you to prepare for transition. Also, it's okay for you to speak to someone. So, I had a therapist during that time. There were some challenges there. So looking for the people that support you and have what you need that way. So you can identify coaches and mentors on the outside. I realized that when I've had the most growth in my career, like I said, I mentioned in track and field, it was with the right coaches in place. And so I don't know why we forget about that we don't think about that beyond sports most of the time. But it matters even in the rest of your life. So having the right coaches in place. Another thing is we have the habit of showing up to units and someone is always welcoming us in, and we're used to, we don't have to make friends or go out and look for anyone. Someone is saying, "Hey, Chris is showing up to the unit today, welcome in," and then now they're showing you around. "Hey, Yogi's showing up, that let's show him around," right? That doesn't happen in the civilian sector. If you don't get out there and get connected to people, no one's coming to find you. So getting out there and really getting connected to your community and getting in networking, because I realized that I separated and I was so busy trying to tread water and stay afloat that I didn't get connected to the community. And I'm from this community that I actually ended up retiring in. Although it was unexpected, I'm from here. And my husband would make the joke and say, "I don't understand how you're from here. You don't know where anything is." And I'm like, "Listen, I ran track and field in high school. I was very much focused on track and field in high school. I didn't do all the other things. I knew how to get to where I needed to go and home. And that was pre, navigation systems and all that kind of stuff." So I didn't have that luxury, but I definitely will say getting out there and getting connected to the community, because that's a skill that it does take time, because we're not used to having to go in and say, "Hi, I'm Crystal. Nice to meet you. Like, let's get connected." And what is it that we do? So you really, because you'll get in the room and you can sit in the room and still not engage with other people. And so it's definitely about getting connected to the community. How can I get out there? So warm yourself up. You know your transition is coming up. So start going to events, start meeting other people, start reaching out to other people and figuring out, let me just see what's out here so that I can decide where I want to go and what I want to do on the other side.
I would love if you could elaborate a little bit better, a little bit more about the whole getting warmed up, right? Everybody says, "Hey, go network." You mentioned about going to events, getting meeting to meet people, and one of the things that really drew my attention was the fact that you said, "Hey, we can go to all these events all we want, but we can sit in the back of the room and just kind of hang out, right?" And I think some of us do that because we feel uncomfortable because we're not sure, whether we have the imposter syndrome or whatever else you want to call it. But it's a very big issue that we're just uncomfortable and we don't know how to start that process. What would be some tips that you could share about being able to make yourself feel comfortable in any room and be able to start that conversation? Or how could you overcome that challenge and that fear of not being comfortable and still be able to make and say, "Hey, I'm Yogi. How can I help you? How can I meet you? What can I do?"
So believe it or not, I am a talker and I've always been a talker. So I was the girl whose report card would say, "Yep, she's doing well, but a little talkative." or very talkative is what it really said. So that was what it said. And so society would make you seem like that's a bad thing, right? And then I started talking, and people are like, oh, I could just listen to you. I love to hear what you have to say, and but you're not thinking that. You're internalizing what somebody else projected onto you. It's a problem. I'm being disruptive because I'm talking. And so now you're shrinking yourself. We're used to having to fall into formation and the top down driven commands. No one's going to give you permission to do anything when you become a civilian. So don't wait for permission. Go out there and get what it is you want. I have been in the rooms where one of the things although I was a talker, I still wasn't that one that went out and had to be seen by everyone. People would come to me and make friends with me. And so I would always have that friend that, they didn't mind standing up and saying, hi, we have this going on. This is me and so, and hey, can you do this for us? Or we can do this. And I would fall in on whatever it was. Yes, I wanted to do. I didn't pick up that go getter, like I have to talk to people and get in the room. And then you go into the military where they give you this structure and then you separate. So I didn't realize the skills I didn't develop because, again, being a part of a sports team is kind of the same thing. You go into that, people just welcome you in. They're like, oh, okay, you're on my team. Let's do this, whatever this is. And then when they see you're shining, then people even more are attracted to you. So it's very similar. But one thing, be authentic, first of all, because people love authenticity. So if you're authentic, people will get to know you, and the people that you're supposed to be connected to will be connected to you. You will draw in the tribe that's for you. You can also bring someone else with you. If there is someone else that that's transitioning or has transitioned that you're connected to, or just someone else that you have that's a friend or a battle buddy or a wingman, and I don't know what all the other services call it, their battles that go with them. But if you have someone else that you're connected to, ask them to go with you, because at least you two can move around the room and talk together, and you can start to warm yourself up and interject yourself into the conversation. So you can get connected to the veteran agencies that are out there. So some of these veteran communities that are within the community, but also there are things like your local county, city, state are doing things that you can get connected to. So I went to a women's veterans roundtable, and even just the presence, like I stood up and said something and people were like, oh wow, like I don't know what it is, but I really like what you said and I like the way that you showed up. But I wouldn't have done that a few years ago. But I went in with intention, and I had something that I wanted to say, and I stood up and said it. And so that authenticity really spoke to other people that were out there in the room. And then you get to know more about what other people are doing out there. And it's okay that you don't know what you want to do. No one's judging for that. They understand that everyone's at a different space, and that's how you learn and grow, is about getting out there and doing something. You have to get out there and do a thing. So that's what I would say. Get out there and just get in the room. You can even start with, if you have a spiritual belief and you show up to church, start interacting at church. Don't just go hear the service and leave. Like, all right, let me get there a little bit before and introduce myself to people. Let me say a little bit after and introduce myself to people. So there are opportunities to get warmed up in all kind of environments. You can talk to people in the fitness center. You're at the gym. People talk to me on the track. So whatever it is you're doing, you never know who's who and what they're doing and what you may be able to do for them and what they may be able to do for you. So I say, just start working that muscle. It's a muscle. So if you don't work the muscle, you don't get the growth.
I love the fact that you said that, right? And because you can literally go to anywhere that you are living your daily life, but most of the time, I would say it's more of a society thing that you know, we're kind of very secluded. As open as America is, we're like, this is my bubble, that's your bubble, and then stay in your bubble kind of thing, right? Which is, to someone like me, it's crazy, especially being born and raised in Mexico City. Everybody talks to everybody, and it's okay to talk to everybody, right? There's that banter, that joking, and everything. Come here, and it's like, well, everybody talks, but only when it's about business, right? Very transactional relationships, not a, hey, and when they do say, hey, how are you doing? It's not an open invitation to have a conversation. It's a more of a hi, bye, I acknowledge you, and I'm running away, right? Um, and with all of that, you mentioned talking at church, right? Or going to events, showing up early and making that time to have that conversation. And Correct me if I'm wrong, but that will also open doors to be able to feel more comfortable in those events. And the moment that you open yourself up to those events, it opens more doors and more doors and more doors that you didn't even know existed.
No, that's spot on. So, funny quick story about that. How are you? You're right, because when I was in Germany, I remember one of the medical assistant staff that was a friend of mine asked my commander's administrative assistant, "How are you?" And so she came to me. She said, "Oh, my lieutenant, she asked me how I was doing. It's none of her business." And I was like, thinking to myself, and I mean, she was so upset. She was like, "My lieutenant, she should not ask me that." And I said, I said, "Okay, you do share with me what's going on with you." I said, but what I want you to understand about Americans, we don't want you to tell us. If you start telling us how you're doing, and it's not like we're not really just having a conversation, it's more of a greeting of the day. It's like we're just saying something. Like you said, it's just like hi. It's a filler. We don't really want you to bleed all over us and tell us stuff, because now we're freaked out. Like when you start telling us stuff, we're like, "Ooh, I didn't know that that was the door that I opened." So I was like, so don't overthink it. You could just say good or so or okay and keep moving. Trust me, that's the answer she wants. She doesn't want to pry into your personal business. But it was just so funny to hear. But she was so sweet and so cute. She came to me about it, so worried. So yeah, that is a real thing that is out here. Also with you just never know, like, you're right. What doors open from anything? And that goes back to being authentic, because if I'm authentic, I'm not going to talk about business all the time, because I have a life outside of business. And so that's when people get to know that, yes, I ran college track, but I still compete as a master's athlete. So I still compete, and I'm a master's all-American over 40 in most of the events that, or all the events that I've competed in: long jump, 100, 200, 400. I actually just ran last Sunday. But if I'm not having that conversation with people, they don't know it. And even on the track in that community, people are like, so do you share this platform with your world too? Your business world? Well, that's a part of me. That's how I got where I am. I started with my passion for track and field, and that fueled every other decision that I made. So it is really about getting connected and talking to people and not knowing what else is out there. My son is doing a great job with that, because he is a kid that when he was 2, when he could first start talking, he would say, "If you need me, I'll be in my room." So he has forced himself outside of his room to start getting connected to other people, and I commend him for that, because that's big. I wasn't there at that age. And so, as you said, moving along faster. Oh, thank you so much. Um, as you said, moving along faster, then, you can get there so much faster with other people. You can get somewhere fast by yourself, but you can get there so much faster with other people. And so just really get out there and get connected and be intentional, because I did that. Go to work and go home, maybe to church. And even at church, I wasn't talking to anyone and coming home. So you can get wrapped up in that. And so I had to say, with intention, get up and go to these events. Search events online and see what topic sounds interesting to you, and show up at the event.
Yeah, I like how you talk about don't be a secret agent. That's kind of how I interpreted it, or Clark Kent, or um, whatever superhero you could think of. All right, so don't be that type of person, because when you get out, you have to start actually like selling your abilities. And how do you sell them? Well, not talking about them, but actually displaying them and let people see who you are and what you're doing to that. And those networking events, like you said, that is just hot fire right there. That is literally the best thing to get out there and do right away. Just rip that band-aid off. And like Yogi was saying earlier, because we're secluded, we don't really want other people in our soup. So we got to get out, and we got to do that like immediately. I think one advantage is, though, honestly, America's civilization, right? Exactly what you said. They don't want to hear hello. Yogi, that was an amazing point. But I feel like us veterans and military members, we're not the same way. We actually analyze and hear what people are saying when they tell us, because we understand the importance of it, especially us veterans, because we don't have that brotherhood, sisterhood that we're used to when we're in the military. So whenever we interlope with each other, we're all hanging out. We actually pay attention to each other a lot more. And if somebody's like, yeah, man, I'm not having a good day, Well, what happened, man? Let's talk about it. You know, would you say that that's kind of like one of the best things about being a veteran, Crystal?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love my veteran community. I love being able to talk to my brothers and sisters in arms because we can share so many different experiences. And so, I worked with the Air Force when I worked with the Air Force as a civilian. I fell on my last assignment. I fell under Navy leadership, so you get that experience and that exposure as well. I was in the medical field, so I transcribe that same thing into my civilian setting, but yes, we definitely are about community. And so when we recognize each other out in the community, then yeah, we are like, oh, okay, I see you. Like, let's have a conversation if we can or whatever. And we will talk more than what everyone else does. We just have to understand that that same environment is not naturally created. Like, it's not structured like it is in the military. So again, we get out here and now we go from many to one if we're not intentional about getting connected to other people. So I don't, I know that it's easy to be that one and you're just attached to your family only. um See people here and there, but it definitely does take the effort to get out there and get connected. And so you can even build your own military communities within that community. So you can reach out to people, say, hey, let's get a group together where we do a book club. Let's get a group together where we come in, we have our own network building. Let's We want to talk business, whatever your topic is. Let's go run together, like whatever it is. Let's go play golf, whatever it is that we do. Let's create something to where we can stay connected, and we can also move as a unit and find different opportunities. You go get what you get and bring it back, and I have what I have and bring it back, and we bring it together. And so, because people want what we have, they really do relish our skill set. And when a lot of times we're just like, it's just what I do. So it doesn't feel like anything to us, but that's not what is projected to the rest of the world. It's just this. It's simple. So because it's simple
It's
to
like
us,
a
that means
superpower.
yes,
It's
yes,
like a superpower, it really is. It's a
yeah.
very attractive feature that us veterans have.
Hmm.
That ability to work with each other and to do those extra steps, right?
Yeah. And like you said, like I love the secret agent. I love the Clark Kent. Like, don't be that person. Like, you can be that person because people like that. But when you're being that person, be it with intent for people to still see you and know that you're there. Because I can tell you, just even like I've done talks and I'm doing things and I'm looking in the chat and they're saying all kind of stuff. And I'm like, what did I say? Like, oh, you thought, like, well, okay, thank you. But I get to share what I think and you get to share what you think with me. And that's how we grow and that's how we learn. So if you what you know got you where you are. So in order for you to get somewhere else, you have to get connected to other people. You're your own limitation. So if I don't go outside of myself with the resources that are out there that have already been written, that have already been recorded, or naturally forming on a regular basis, then I can't go any further than where I am. I'm going to be the cap of my own jar. So in order for me to keep that cap off, I got to keep on getting out there and keep growing and keep leveling up into different rooms.
The law of the lid, correct? I don't know if you've had the chance. Yeah, the 48 laws of power, right? Law of the lid and being able to go past where you had whatever level you had achieved, and because at the end of the day, that's your top, right? Unless somebody comes in there and removes that cap from you, you're never going to be able to go to the next level. Beautifully said. Um, if you had to leave our audience with the most valuable piece of information that you would say has made you this successful, what would it be?
So I remember my mom told me, well, I actually have two things. So two of the quotes that my mom said to me when I was growing up. And again, that goes back to that. I'm pretty sure she thought it was something simple, but she didn't really know how it would resonate. So one of the things that she would say to me is that whoever it is, there's something that you want out there. They have theirs and you have yours to get. So you can sit back and talk about whatever it is they're doing or not doing that's keeping you from getting to whatever it is or whatever frustration you have with them, or you can see what it is they're doing and get what you need to get from them and keep moving past that, right? So like that's even the teachers. You're having problems with your teachers. They're giving you a hard time. You're having a hard time with your leadership. They're giving you a hard time. Okay, but they are already in the position where you may want to go. So are you going to sit back and keep complaining about what it is they're doing or not doing, or are you going to get the qualities that you need to get from them for you to get to that level and beyond? So that's one thing that I will say. They have theirs and you have yours to get. So I've always listened to that. I never get bogged down. Even it's okay to feel what you feel, but I may not agree or like everything that you're doing, but what can I find that you have that is a great quality that I want to take with me? And what can I learn from you that I don't want to do with someone else? So I'm still taking that with me. So that's one. The other thing is they are no better than you. So that was big for me because I remember when I was enlisted, you would think that certain people had so much stuff together, right? And when I commissioned, I was like, oh, I'm gonna keep my comment to myself. But I was like, oh, this person, they don't have it together like I thought they were. And but what I did was when I went into that environment, I didn't become a person that made everybody else do everything for me and I didn't know how to do it myself. I said, oh, okay, great. I'm in this position. Can you show me how to do that? No, I may not ever need to do that. This person is doing that and they're doing it superbly. But one, I get to know what you're doing. So I'm aware. And if I need to check that, I can say, okay, I'm familiar with this and this shouldn't take this long or this shouldn't be this kind of a problem. Or let me show you if someone else needs some help. Two, you never know when you can use that information or that skill set that you've picked up in another setting. And I've actually used those skills that I've learned by watching or just asking the questions from other people to catapult my civilian career. And so I love to take just different tools and put them in my kit bag and I'm always ready to rock and roll. So I can pull out all kind of different things that I've experienced and been exposed to and use it like, oh, it's just like playing a video game. I get to reserve these things that are going to have me like go to these next levels and do these cool things for when I'm ready to when I need it. So I'm like, yep, I can pull this out and apply this today. Like this is my even we can go to Monopoly. So that I pull out my money like, oh, I want to buy these hotels because now I have cash to do it. That's my cash. Me picking up what I can pick up from other people. I've used that to get into these positions. I've never done some of these functions ever before, but I could talk about it and I can learn it real quick because I've asked other people to do it. I didn't rely on other people to do everything and me sit back and just say, well, they got it. And I'm bigger, I'm better than that. So those are the things that I will leave the audience with.
I am fascinated by that because there's nothing better than to, you can tell, everybody can tell, regardless of the rank, whether you actually know what you're talking about. And there's nothing more embarrassing than someone that says something that is completely out in the left field, and you're like, I am sorry for what you're saying, but that doesn't make any sense in the real world, right? Or this program doesn't really operate this way. I'm sorry, and you, as an enlisted personnel, right, or as a junior service member, you're like, um, no, that's not how it works, right? And two things will happen. They'll either say it to your face if they have that moral fortitude, in hopefully in a very nice way. Sometimes it's not, right? But I would say 90% of the time, they won't say anything, but you lost the respect of the chain of command by like, man, this person has no idea what they're talking about. There goes our leadership. Thank you. And it sucks. Now, shifting the tables a little bit, what allowed you to get into the right mindset during your transition?
So one of the things is I never put it this way, and I've been hearing this word a lot over the last few years. And I heard it before in a different setting, like maybe in a spiritual setting about being a disruptor, right? And so I didn't really realize that that's what I've been, but I am that person that will call out, like if what you're saying doesn't make sense, and I do it in the most respectful way. However, what I see is someone has allowed you to get to where you are, and they've never helped you along the way, right? So you got to be the senior leader and you're saying things that don't make sense and no one's calling you on it. I feel embarrassed for you. And I feel that I'm doing you a disservice by not helping you grow, not saying something. I cannot be a yes person. I can't do it. So if you look a certain way, you're presenting yourself in a certain way, or you look uncomfortable, or you're saying something that's not correct, I'm going to find the most appropriate way that I can tell you about it, that I hope that you take that with you and grow from it, because no one else around you gave you that opportunity to be in a better position than you're in, and they're letting you just say whatever. So I'm going to be a disruptor. So with that, I realized that when people are telling me no to things, I can't tell myself no. So I'm going to try whatever it is that I want to try. If I don't try it, then that means that I've already told myself no. My answer is already no. As opposed to me trying it and I have the opportunity of it being yes or no. If I don't do it, it's always no. When other people are saying it and I don't do it, it's always no. So I have to understand that there are always answers. It's yes or no, and maybe is not right now. It could still be yes, it could still be no. So I'm going to give it a try and see what happens. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to pivot and do what I need to do to adjust what I have going on from there. So don't be married to whatever you think it is that you want. Understand that as we're growing, your life is going to change. What you want and what you need is going to change. So you do the best you can to find a target and walk towards it. However, if you have to adjust fire, you adjust fire. We've done it before. So keep doing that. And that's how I shifted my mindset to understand, you know what? You got to, okay, it's not working. This is not what you wanted. This is not what you expected. Because, yes, I would have loved to take the 15 retirement on my terms, not for Uncle Sam to say it's time for you to go, but that wasn't the way that it went. So I had to adjust fire. Okay, this is what we're dealing with. I can't sit down and cry about it and mope and not do anything. And then I'm 10 years down the road and I'm in a no better position or maybe a worse position than I was because I've stopped growing and stopped moving. So keep walking forward and your mind is going to shift. I love to put simple things. I learned a little bit ago that I was getting back into school doing some science things and I said, I'm not really getting all this information. It's a whole lot. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I would sit my earbuds in my ear and listen to like some of the information, like some of the educational information, whatever it is. So it can be positive affirmations that someone's playing. It can be audio growth books or what have you. And I would listen to it to keep myself, and I would sleep to it. So I feel like subconsciously you're getting that information into your mindset and into your spirit. So even though you don't think so, it's seeping over into your dreams and everything else. And so you're getting up and moving with purpose with that. And so I take that same thing and do it even now at this point on another level. In my professional development, I'm listening to things even at night when I go to bed. So you don't have to play it loud, just put it in softly and find something that's going to help you move it towards your mark. And that'll help you as well with the mindset.
Yeah, I like how you surrounded yourself with those things that are going to help you move forward. And after you got out of the army, you know, I would I would have to ask. I probably already know the answer to this, but you look at yourself as, um, Captain Nat. That was who you were, and you earned that position, and you earned the name. You earned that rank, but that rank wasn't yours. See, that's a lot of the problem is that we think that the rank that we're wearing at that time is actually ours. No, we're borrowing that, and if you don't have that mindset of I'm just borrowing this, it's a little bit harder for you to give it back and be like, okay, well now I'm just Crystal, now I'm just Yogi, now I'm just Chris. I'm no longer captain. I'm no longer senior chief. No longer petty officer. I'm no longer gunnery sergeant. I'm no longer, whatever that title is that you were, because you were just borrowing that. And after you get out, because you put uh, a lot of value onto that, and that is kind of like a lot of our thought processes that was our purpose, but it might not actually be that rank that was your purpose. It was what you were able to achieve while you're wearing that rank. But once that's removed, now you think you lost your purpose. What did it take for you to find your purpose again?
So I'll say that I'm glad you brought that up because I know a lot of people do have that problem. There are some people that are like hardcore, this is what I am, and they act like the military, you're never going home. We all have to go at some point. It's going to happen. And so you have to understand that you're going to get back out there in the civilian world and people, yes, they honor us as veterans, whatever that means, however they decide to show that honor, even if it's sometimes it's surface level and it's to thank you for your service and that's about all you're going to get from them, or them offer you low wage positions like, oh yeah, we hire veterans, we can have you be this cashier, and you're like, really? Like, I've done a whole lot of stuff and I'm a lot older than needing the responsibility of what you can pay me for being a cashier to take care of myself and my family. So that, thank you but no thank you. So I didn't really take on that. I knew that I knew that I had a part of my identity wrapped up in the service. Yes. I didn't wear the rank to where I thought that was all I was and who I was. So I didn't wear it to the point where I didn't think a day would come where I would separate, right? But at the same time, when someone sit down and ask you the question about, okay, tell me about yourself, and you separate it, and anything that you start telling, you talk about all the facts of the professional things you've done. You don't give any personal things. When somebody, oh, tell me about yourself, and you're like, oh, I've been, I graduated from here. I served in the military. I'm a disabled veteran. I was, a medical service corps officer. I was a medic. I was a driver. I was this, and then they said, no, no, no. Tell me about Crystal. When that light bulb comes on, you're like, oh, well, I didn't. And what we think, I didn't know that you wanted to know about me personally. I wasn't sure if you wanted to know personally or professionally. So it's always about just being you, and the rest of those details will come out. So those that do wear it and don't realize that that day is coming, they will have much more of a challenge, because it was challenging enough, and I did not own that identity to where. I love how you said it. You're borrowing this. This is something that you've achieved, but it's temporary. And I've had people say, and I've said, hey, you need to start taking care of yourself. When you leave here next month, they're not going to remember you. I know, and I don't like that. I'm like, but that's the process. So don't, there was a surgeon, there was a three-star general who was a surgeon in the army, I think a cardio surgeon. And he said, you are a cog on the wheel. When that cog comes off the wheel, they're going to replace you. So don't give that service so much of yourself that you have nothing left for yourself or your family. That is one of the things that I would say. So start working on that transition. Start working that mind shift change to where you are getting to know who you are outside of the military, so that that transition is much simpler. So yeah, you will have a challenge with it if you don't start working on it. And the earlier you work on it, the better.
Return to Root podcast. You have heard it. Crystal, she speaks, has gave us a lot of wisdom, very inspirational, and has allowed us to see and peek into that beautiful mindset of experience and overcoming challenges. Um, Crystal, we cannot thank you enough for being here and sharing all of this with us, right? Personally, you have inspired me a lot. Um, you're, thank you for being willing to share all this information um, with the rest of our audience, because it's very difficult to hear and see that kind of perspective, and very positive perspective, right? You could choose to be negative and upset about the fact that you were not able to leave the military in your own terms, but you are seeing the beautiful part of, hey, this didn't work out the way I wanted to. Let me pivot and change and make something better out of this, and so on and so forth. Again, thank you. Thank you so much. We would love for you to be a part of the tribe and continue, with what everything that comes up. And we want to be part of your story.
Thank you so much, Yogi and Chris, for having me. And thank you, listeners. You all are magnificent and amazing if no one has told you. So always remember that and keep moving forward. And I'll see you beyond the climb.
I love it. Hey, everybody, you guys heard it. I want you guys to stop what you're doing and go look up her books. All right, you got Crystal. She speaks, and she wrote. She needs to move something to live, and then you got the six-figure federal career. So take a look at that. Put it on your guys' audiobooks. Put it on your wherever you get books out. Go get it and listen to what she's got to say. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Everybody that's listening, I want you guys to really pay attention to this. It's not all rainbows and unicorns out there. It's your transition. Take charge of it. MIl2Vet out.